We get so wrapped up in what everybody else wants us to be that we forget who we actually are. And it becomes such a habit to just give everyone else what they want, what they expect, that we don't really know how to get back to who we are. A lot of us don't even know who we are. I remember when I moved out on my own, it was the first time when I actually started thinking about, who am I? What do I want? And it felt so weird and so foreign because it was never something that I had considered in the past. And so it was like this huge uncovering process of like, okay, where do I even start? I don't even know like where to start.
Hi there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. Hi there, welcome to a special episode of The Quiet Ones. This week I'm doing a series of free workshops called Here for This. They are all about finding your true self as an INFJ, finding self-love and confidence, and how to break the habits that make up most of your life, those habits that keep you feeling stuck and hopeless, and how to help you find your true self. On today's episode, I'm sharing one of the workshops because I want to help you as much as I possibly can. I started this podcast and my blog, which is called INFJ Woman, because I felt broken and messed up, and I realized that that wasn't true at all. So many of us INFJs have been told that we are wrong our whole lives, and we take that to heart and it becomes a part of our core beliefs. That belief repeats itself in our heads over and over again, which hurts our confidence and our self-love. So I created these workshops to help you see this pattern and to learn how to fix it. You deserve better. You are an absolutely wonderful and amazing person with a darling personality. I'm here to help you create your best self so that you can shine for all of the world. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that you can still join these workshops live. Go to infjwoman.com/hereforthis to get access right now. Today we're talking about who were you before you were told who to be. So I want to start by telling you that God doesn't make mistakes. And if God doesn't work for you, you can replace that with whatever does work for you. Whether you believe in the universe or you believe something else, whatever works for you. God doesn't make mistakes. You're not a mistake. There's no way that you're broken or messed up. You were made the way that you are for a very special reason. Even if other people don't understand it, even if other people don't get it. We get so wrapped up in what everybody else wants us to be that we forget who we actually are. And it becomes such a habit to just give everyone else what they want, what they expect, that we don't really know how to get back to who we are. A lot of us don't even know who we are. I remember when I moved out on my own, it was the first time when I actually started thinking about, who am I? What do I want? And it felt so weird and so foreign because it was never something that I had considered in the past.
And so it was like this huge uncovering process of like, okay, where do I even start? I don't even know like where to start. So we're going to break that down today and help you understand how all of this works. I wanted to share something with you that somebody sent to me. I believe it came in an email. It says, I was taught early in life that it's not okay to feel. Put those feelings under your feet and keep trucking along. And I remember most of my life hating feelings. Feeling makes you lose control. When I read that, it sounded like something that I could have written myself because I kind of had a lot of the same experience. There were certain feelings that I was taught were okay, and there were other feelings that I was taught weren't so much okay. And I don't really even remember like specific events. It's kind of just like a generalization, like um, I was told when I was angry when I was young, I was told to stop acting like that. And, we don't act like that. And things like that, that were like, that it's wrong. You just get this feeling of you can't be angry. You can't be lashing out at people. You can't even express that there's something going on that isn't quite right. Um, but I know that it was okay when I was crying. If I was upset, um, if I was sad, that was okay. Because then my family would be there to comfort me and they would be there telling me, everything's going to be okay. If I was angry, it was like, just go to your room and, nobody's going to come and talk to you. Just go over there and get over it by yourself. And I didn't even realize this until later in my life. I have this problem where when I get really angry, I start crying. And it never made any sense to me. It was just like, like I thought that there was something wrong with me, that I was broken, because like who cries when they're super angry? And I'll give you the perfect perfect example. When I first moved to Boston just a couple of years ago, I lived in this apartment. There was a pretty nice apartment, but apartments in Boston in general are super expensive. So when I lived in North Carolina, I lived in a luxury apartment that was $900 a month. When I moved to Boston, I lived in a normal, regular apartment, not a luxury apartment, but it was $2,000 a month. So, of course, I mean, that was a lot of money for me, and I was barely able to pay my rent with the job that I had. But one of the reasons that I rented that apartment was because they sold me on a lot of things, like there's a lot of security and there's a garage for my car and they have 24-hour maintenance, which is a big deal for me because I'm not a handyman person. I don't know how to fix things. So they sold me on that, and it was a brand new building. And if you've ever lived in a brand new building, a lot of them have a lot of issues. So it was winter time and like 30 degrees outside, probably some kind of snow on the ground. And for some reason, my hot water stopped working. And I'm like, how can I not have hot water in a brand new building? So I'm irritated, right? But then I noticed that it was really cold inside of my apartment too, so the heater stopped working. And I didn't know, I learned later they're actually connected, but all I knew was that it could not be cold in my apartment. Like, I'm paying $2,000 a month rent for this apartment. This is insane. So I got mad, right? And I'm calling the maintenance people, and it was a Sunday, of course, because this never happens during the week. So I'm already irritated, right? Because it's a brand new building and this shouldn't happen, and I'm paying all this money. And I call them, and it's like an answering service, people that they've hired to answer the phone. And so I call them, and they're like, okay, we'll schedule something and you'll hear back from the maintenance people. And I'm like, okay. So a couple hours go by, and it's now getting into like Sunday at like 8 o'clock at night, and nobody has called me. And so I call them back, and I'm like, what is going on? This is insanely ridiculous. And they're like, well, I'm looking at, there's like a list of emergencies for your building, and your heater not working is not on the list. So we're going to have somebody call you on Monday when they get in. And I'm like, it's 30 degrees outside and it's 60 degrees inside of my apartment right now. By tomorrow morning, it could be 30 degrees inside my apartment. That is not okay. And so I just keep getting madder and madder and madder. And the guy's like, well, it's not on the list. And I'm like, do you not have a brain? Like, can you not rationalize this? Do you know what 30 degrees feels like? That's not okay. Like, what if I die? And plus, I pay $2,000 a month rent. I deserve better than this. And so I'm just getting so mad that, like, I asked for their manager and the manager was giving me a hard time. And then finally I got so mad that they put the maintenance guy on the phone. And the maintenance guy, who was like actually worked for our apartment, the guy who would come out to my building and fix it, he was like, you know what? I live an hour away from your building and I was just there. And why didn't you call earlier? And I'm so beyond mad because I'm like, I did call earlier and they just didn't tell you about it. And so he was being so rude to me that I was just like, when you get so mad, you can feel your blood pressure like rising and like your head starts to hurt and you can tell that your face is all red. And it was just like, I'm just so glad that these people aren't standing in front of me because I just want to strangle them. And when the guy finally agreed, like, fine, I will come out and fix your issue. And I'm like, good. And so I hang up the phone and I just burst into tears. And I was just like sobbing. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, why am I crying? I should be angry. I am angry. And why am I crying? This just doesn't make any sense at all. And I learned later, that it was okay for me to cry when I was young, but it was not okay for me to be angry. And so my body actually learned that crying is fine, but anger is not fine. So when you get into anger, you have to start crying because that's okay. It's this weird way, we talked about yesterday that your body remembers things. It has habits. And we're going to talk some more about that today. But there's a lot of those habits that we learn when we're young, that we learn that certain things are not acceptable, right? And when we're young and people are telling us, our family, our teachers, maybe our siblings, when they're telling us that certain things are not okay, it's traumatic for young kids. Because you have to think back to like when you were 5 or 6 or 7 years old and somebody's telling you it's not okay for you to be angry. You don't know what to do with the anger. You don't know how to express it. And so what happens is you just end up bottling it up. It's especially traumatic for us as INFJs, as introverts, because we're so sensitive. We believe what people tell us, and we want to be good. We want them to be happy, right? We can feel their feelings through our extroverted feeling function. We know when they're happy. We know when they're pleased with us. And we want them to be happy. We want them to be comfortable. And when we're so young like that, we don't understand how our personality works. We don't understand why we can feel what they're feeling. We don't understand why it affects us so much. All we know is that we're willing to do whatever it takes to make them okay with us because we want to be the good little kids. And so, of course, we end up people pleasing. We fall into it so easily. So there's three things that are incredibly important, and this goes for all personality types, but it's especially important for INFJs because we feel so much, right? There are 3 things that are called universal fears that everyone needs to feel, and we're all afraid that we won't feel these things. We're afraid that we won't be enough, we're afraid that we won't be lovable, and we're afraid that we don't belong. And so when you're made to feel those things, when you're made to feel like you're not enough, like you're not lovable, and that you don't belong, we are willing to sacrifice certain things in order to feel those things. So we sacrifice our needs, our emotions, and our boundaries in order to feel like we're enough. to feel like we're lovable and to feel like we belong. So you think about when you're young, think about things that you did to make everything okay. And I know that a lot of us have these stories. One of the things that I'm reminded of constantly when I talk about this, when I was young, I had 3 siblings. 2 of them were younger than me. And my older sister was just kind of like aloof. She didn't really care. And my mom would work at night and then she went to school at night too. So she wasn't usually home at night. And when she came home, if the house was a mess and the laundry wasn't done and there were toys everywhere and nobody had eaten, she would be mad. She would be really angry. And she would usually say things like, nobody cares about me, nobody does anything to help me, it's all on me. It was like this long guilt trip, right? And that made me super uncomfortable because I didn't want her to feel like I didn't care about her. I didn't want her to feel like she had to do everything. Um, and I didn't want her being angry. That made me uncomfortable. Just the fact that she was angry made me uncomfortable. I wanted her to feel good. I wanted her to feel happy. And I noticed that on the days that I would clean up all the toys, I would vacuum the floor, I would make dinner, I would do the laundry. When all of this was done, by the time she got home, she was happy on those days. And even if she wasn't like happy, she was at least wasn't yelling at people. She wasn't yelling at me, she wasn't yelling at anybody else. She was content. So I thought, okay, I guess this is just what I'm gonna do. Like every single day, I'm going to vacuum the floor. I'm gonna clean up all the toys. I'm gonna do the dishes. I'm gonna make dinner. I'm going to make sure that all the laundry is done so that she's comfortable, so that I feel like I've done something, so that she comes home and she's happy, because that makes me feel lovable. That makes me feel like I'm enough. And I was never able to tell her that, hey, this isn't what I need. I was never able to tell her, you're making me feel really guilty, like I have to do everything. And I was never able to set any boundaries either, because it's like, it doesn't matter. What I need doesn't matter. I don't need boundaries. I just need to feel like I'm enough. I just need to feel lovable. I just need to feel like I belong. That's it. So I'll sacrifice what I need. I'll sacrifice my emotions and I'll sacrifice all of my boundaries just so that I can feel like I'm enough. It's so easy for us as INFJs to do this because we're so adaptable, right? We can feel what other people are feeling. And then as we get older, we know what's coming. We've experienced it before. We can feel the pain. We can see how people are going to react based on how they've reacted in the past. We can see what they're going to do based on what they've done in the past. So we know the pain that's coming. And we are willing to do whatever we can to avoid that pain, right? So how this shows up in your life is that you have a lot of, toxic is really a strong word, but you have a lot of relationships that they're toxic or they're just not good for you. They don't serve you. So you have a lot of people in your life who take advantage of you. And this could be your friends, it could be your siblings, it could be your significant other, it could be your boss, your coworkers. But they are people who take advantage of you. They know that you're willing to show up for them, whatever they need, but they won't do the same thing for you. They know that they can call you and say, hey, I need this. And you'll be like, done, I'm there. What do you need? What can I do? But if you called them and said, hey, I need your help, they would be like, I don't have time for that. I'm not going to do that. Why would you ask me that? I've had so many friends in my life that have been like that. Just recently, a friend of mine called me and she said, I need somebody to do some graphic design work. And I know that you do graphic design work. Um, but I called somebody and they charge like $800 to do like a simple logo. Can you believe that? That's insane. And the first thing that I did, just out of habit, was like, oh, that is insane. I can do it for you. What do you need? And before I knew it, it wasn't just a logo, it was a PowerPoint presentation, and it was a handout, and it was business cards, and then it was their website. And I'm like, okay, yeah, $800 was insane because it was so cheap. They should have charged like 5 times that much. Um, Something else, another way that it will show up is the jobs that you have. You're going to end up with the same boss over and over again because they see you coming. They know that you can't speak up for yourself. They know that you're willing to do whatever. They know that you're willing to do the work of 2 people or 3 people or 5 people. And they'll take advantage of it, right? It shows up also as being scared to be seen. We don't want to share our opinion with people. We don't want to even commit to an opinion. It's like, I want to know how you feel before I can tell you how I feel. I had this habit of going around to all of my friends. Something would happen to me, like, somebody at work would say something really nasty to me, and I couldn't commit to a feeling. And it was like, I have to go ask all of my friends and my mom and my sisters. I want to know how they feel before I can decide if it's okay for me to feel bad about it. I couldn't even commit to, that was rude. I deserve better. I had to know how everybody else felt first. It was like, am I overreacting here? Or like, should I feel bad even though I do feel bad? Like, I don't want to say that I feel bad. Which is, not only is it a fear of being seen, but it's also a lack of confidence because you don't even want to say, hey, that was rude. I shouldn't be treated like that. I deserve better. But it's difficult to say that you deserve better because you genuinely don't believe it. You believe that in order to feel loved, that you have to do all of these things for other people, that love is something that's earned rather than something that's just freely given. Another way that it shows up is that you feel guilty for no reason. Or especially you feel guilty when you want to do something for yourself. When I moved to North Carolina. Wow, when was it? 2010 was the first time I moved to North Carolina. I felt so much guilt for leaving my family, my parents and my siblings, that I almost didn't go. It took me 10 years to make that decision and to actually go because I felt guilty for leaving them. There was so much that I did for them, and even just moral support that was like, I don't want to leave. But I knew that I had to leave because I wanted, there were hopes and dreams that I had that I couldn't work on where I was. There was nothing for me where I was, and so I had to leave in order to move forward. I felt guilty again when I moved to Boston because I was back in the same place with the same guilt, the same thing pulling me back is like, you're needed here because I did so much. It was like I just felt guilty for wanting something for myself. I felt guilty for putting myself above what everybody else needed. And another way that this shows up is not being able to set boundaries. You can't say no to people. You can't, especially your family and friends. The longer that you've had friends, the more difficult it is to say no. Even if you want to set boundaries, even if you have this desire to say, no, I'm not going to do that, it's incredibly difficult. And a lot of times you get into this situation where you were made to feel like you're not enough, that you're not lovable, and that you don't belong. A lot of times it comes from your family. A lot of times it comes from your parents. And I want to be super clear that I'm not here to blame people, right? I have a pretty good relationship with my family, and I'm not blaming my parents. I know that they did the best that they could with what they knew. This type of behavior is usually passed down from generations, and it probably came from their parents, and it may have came from their parents and their parents before them, because they just didn't know any better. They didn't realize the effects that they're having on their kids. And another thing is, another word for this is childhood trauma. And I know that a lot of people, when you think about trauma, you think about like really bad abuse. You think about physical abuse and sexual abuse and things like that nobody should have to go through. But I never thought that something as simple as not being allowed to be angry was considered trauma. And I learned this year that it is considered trauma. And because when you're so young, you don't understand. You don't understand why you're not allowed to be angry. And it doesn't make sense to you. All you know is that you can't be angry. And so you learn this behavior of, I can't be angry, so what do I do instead of being angry? Or you learn to just smash all of that down and say, no, it's fine, and pretend that everything is fine. In my life, I know that some of it came from my parents. I also know that a lot of it came from my older sister, who is very narcissistic. She used to tell me all the time, she's 2 years older than me. And so she used to tell me all the time things like, you have a good singing voice, but it's not like good like mine. Like I'm a lot better than you are. Or you're pretty, but you're not like pretty like me. Like I'm super pretty and you're just like a little bit okay. And because she would say that kind of stuff constantly to me, I felt like I wasn't enough. I felt like I was okay, but not like great. I felt like I wasn't lovable either because, you don't want to be the second best, right? You want to be the best. You want to be the prettiest. You want to be the smartest. You want to be the funniest. And I felt like I wasn't. Who would want somebody who was just okay? And I felt like I didn't belong as well because I wasn't lovable and I wasn't enough. And so, because I had those feelings, I would sacrifice my needs, my emotions, and my boundaries around my sister. I would never tell her what I wanted. I would never tell her how I felt. It didn't matter. And she would tell me that over and over again. And there were no boundaries either. I would do whatever she wanted. And it got to be a really bad situation because she was like this wild child who would do whatever she wanted. And I was the responsible one who was the good girl who always did everything right. But she got me into a lot of situations like when we got into high school, she would skip school, but she wanted somebody to call the school so that they didn't call our mom and dad and say, hey, where's your daughter? Why isn't she in school? So she asked me to call the school, and she's like, you sound just like mom, so it won't matter. They won't know. And I'm like, didn't want to do it, but eventually she talked me into it, right? Because I had no boundaries. And so I did it. And then, of course, she got out of school and that was fine. But then what she would do is she would start feeling guilty later. And so then she would go to my mom and say, hey, I did this and I'm sorry, but it was really Sarah's fault. And then my mom would come to me and go, why do you do this? Like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, wow, how did I get into this situation? Like, I thought I was doing the right thing, and now I'm in trouble for like two different things, and now there's something wrong with me for what? Wait, what happened? I'm confused. it was always that way, and I knew that she was gonna stab me in the back, like, but for some reason, I didn't have any boundaries. So I would still continue to do things for her and with her. And that carried on for years. So we talked about how 95% of the actions that we take and the thoughts that we think are habit. And I just wanted to go through that again just to make sure that you understand what we were talking about. So you get yourself into these situations, kind of like what I was talking about with my older sister, um, because she really wasn't concerned about anybody else. When she would get mad, she would scream and yell and throw huge fits, and then it would be over and she would be done, right? Um, but every time that she did something like that, I would have a response to it. I would get scared and I would want to leave. But I knew that leaving would make it worse from experience. So I knew that the best thing that I could do was sit there with her, listen to what she was saying, and then tell her everything was going to be okay. So what happens is when you're in those situations, you know that you have this fight or flight response, right? And we know that there are chemical reactions that happen in your body that trigger that fight or flight response, right? So there are chemical and hormonal changes where your body's like on high alert going, what's happening? What do we need to do in this situation? When you're exposed to that a lot, it becomes normal for you. Even though it's not a normal thing for somebody to scream and yell at you, especially over something that's not your fault, if it happens to you a lot, you're used to it. And so it becomes normal for you. And your body gets used to that. Your body and your mind, they want what they're used to. They want what's normal for them. Even if it's painful, it's what they're used to. So they go looking for that response. They go looking for that same experience over and over again. And it's like it happens to you unconsciously. So a lot of times we say, I'm attracted to these toxic people. It's like they're attracted to me like magnets. And I don't know why I keep getting into the same situation, but I keep having different bosses who act just like my sister. Most of my friends act just like my sister. And I hate being in that situation because I hate that feeling of these people yelling at me and screaming at me. But it's like I can't get away from these people. It's because unconsciously your body and your mind, they're used to that chemical reaction and they want that because it's normal. Tell me in the chat if this is making sense to you, if you're understanding what I'm saying. It's kind of it's a new concept for me because it's like I'd never heard anything like this before. Nobody ever told me that your body gets addicted to these types of feelings. We think about things like chocolate and sugar and coffee. We think about things like alcohol. We understand the chemical dependency that we have on those things, but we don't really understand the chemical reactions that we have to people treating us badly. Okay, good. Good deal. So the emotions that we have, the things that we feel normally, they're end products of our past experiences, right? So when we try to change, when we want to change, even if it's something that we think about all the time and we're obsessed with, our body resists that change. Your body wants what's normal. Your mind wants what's normal, even if it's not good for you. The true change can only occur when you unmemorize those emotions that you felt before and you memorize new emotions that you want to feel. When your body and your mind are in opposition, your change will never take place. And because so much of what we feel is a habit, because we don't think about it most of the time. It's just something that, we're constantly rehearsing the emotions that we've always felt. We're constantly repeating the same stories that have always played in our head. That's why it's so difficult to change. That's why you can't make the changes that you want to make. So, how do we get past this? How do we stop living to please everyone else and start stepping into who we really are? One of the main things that you have to do is connect to your inner child and remember who you were before everybody started telling you this is who you need to be. So, step one in that process is a little bit of review from yesterday. It's recognizing what's going on, it's witnessing it in the moment. And that doesn't mean that you're changing it in that moment, it means that you're seeing it. We think about this like with alcoholics, people tell you, or with drug addicts, the first step to recovery is admitting that you have a problem, right? And that's the same thing here. We're addicted. We're addicted to emotions. So the first step to recovery has to be admitting that you have a problem and recognizing that problem, seeing it when it's happening. And this is a really big step because most people aren't aware of their habits. Most people don't know what's going on. And you can't fix the problem until you recognize what it is, right? So that's step one. Step two is that you have to take control of what your mind is telling you. You have to run the show consciously. Every single day up until now, your brain is created to protect you, right? So it does what it does to protect you. But up until today, your brain has been like Bill Murray and Groundhog Day. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. The same thing. And you can probably recognize, I bet if I asked you right now, you can recognize some stories that you tell yourself all the time. One of my big stories, this has come from years and years and years. I can't lose weight. It's difficult to lose weight. It's incredibly impossible. And I can pinpoint when that came about because my whole life has been a struggle in losing weight, because that's been my mom's whole life. And she has this pattern that I've recognized in the last few years. She gets this new diet and it's like this great thing and this is exactly what's going to work. One time she told me it was tomatoes. She's like, I'm going to stop eating tomatoes because tomatoes make me fat. And I'm like, what? Where did you get that from? Oh, well, it was in this book and it's this great book. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So there's a new diet, whether it's the Atkins diet or the keto diet or being vegan, plant-based diet. It used to be, recently it's been diets. In the past, it was more like pills and supplements and things. There was even this one supplement that we took one time that legitimately tasted like dish soap. And I think she paid like $100 a bottle for it, but it was horrible. But that's part of the pattern, right? The first step is like, there's this new diet and this is going to work. And so she'll get all the stuff ready and like do the diet for like 3 days, maybe a week, but it's usually like 2 or 3 days. And then it's like, well, I haven't lost 100 pounds in 3 days. So obviously the diet doesn't work. It doesn't work. I can't lose weight. I'm never going to lose weight. Everything is always going to be the same. And I'm like, recently I started asking her because I noticed this pattern, right? And I was like, not only, like, it's easy for me to see the pattern in her, right? Because I can see other people a lot better than I can see myself, as, we all are. So I noticed the pattern in her, and then I noticed the pattern in myself, and I'm like, yeah, that's where that came from. That's that belief in my head that I can't lose weight. So I asked her recently, she was on this whole thing, like she's been doing a vegan diet more recently. And she's like, well, obviously it doesn't work because I haven't lost any weight. And I was like, well, you want to lose like 50 pounds, right? How long did it take you to gain the 50 pounds? She's like, well, I don't know. I've been overweight for like 30 years. I'm like, okay. So if it took you 30 years to gain 50 pounds, why do you think it's going to take 3 days to lose 50 pounds? Like, maybe you should give it 30 years before you decide that it doesn't work. And she was like, well, do you think it's gonna take 30 years? And I'm like, well, I hope not, but maybe you should at least give it like 6 months before you say it's not gonna work. That's just a belief that you have that needs to change. And she really didn't know what to say because, she'd never heard something like that, right? So once you've recognized your thought patterns, you've recognized what the problem is, then you have to be aware. Instead of replaying the same thing over and over again, you have to be aware of what's going on. And you have to actively change the story. You have to ask yourself, who do you want to be? What story do you want to tell? What story do you want to play in your head? The story that I want is not, I can't lose weight. It's really difficult to lose weight. The story that I want is, it's easy to lose weight. I lose weight effortlessly. I don't even have to think about it. I just lose weight. There was a guy who was on Kathy Heller's podcast. I love Kathy Heller. She has this podcast called Don't Keep Your Day Job. And this guy's name is Gay Hendricks. And he was talking about an exercise that he does with people to help them figure out what they want. And he said that he puts them in a room for 10 minutes and they listen to this meditation that asks them over and over again for 10 minutes, what is it that you want? What do you want most in life? And he says that it's a life-changing experience because the more that you think about it, the deeper that you go into what do you really want? What is the goal? What would make you happy more than anything else? When was the last time that you actually thought about what you want? When was the last time that you thought about what you want without thinking about anybody else? Or without feeling guilty for taking the time for yourself? Without feeling guilty for saying, I actually want something for myself? When was the last time that you put what you want ahead of what everybody else wants? Or what you need ahead of what everybody else needs? It's a process for us, especially if you're not used to doing those types of things. If you're used to giving and giving and giving and giving and never saying, hey, I need something for myself, then it can be really difficult to take those steps. But it's also an important step to take because, again, if you just keep repeating what you've always done, you're always going to have what you have right now. And step 3 is that you have to connect to your inner child. You have to remember who that person is, who that person was. What were you like when you were 7 years old? Do you remember? What does she need? What does that little girl want? What are her hopes and her dreams? I know that we're running a little bit short on time, so I want to give you a meditation that I have that it's kind of like a visualization that will help you think about who your inner child is, who the person that you were when you were 7 or 8 years old, and help you connect to that thing that you want the most in life, that thing that you need right now. So I'm going to post a link. I might post it on the live video on the feed once we're done here. But I'll send it to you in your email and it'll be in the guide section on the Facebook group as well. It's a great visualization. I think it's only like 5 or 6 minutes and it'll help you really understand like what do you need right now? What's the most important thing? Connecting to your inner child and remembering who you were before the world told you who to be, that will help you get back to who you really are and what you really want right now. It's time for you to be who you want to be. If there was ever a time, now's the right time. If you keep putting it off, you're always going to have what you have right now. It's time for you to be who you want to be without the pressure of what everybody else thinks. So that's what we're doing this week. Um, once you know who you want to be, once you see how other people's opinions affect you, then you can step out of all of that and you can step into confidence, which is the next step. And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. Confidence comes with this whole different type of energy. And when you learn what energy is and how to change your energy, how to actively be aware of your energy and change it, it'll change your life. It's changed mine. Even just in the last couple of months. It's been this amazing transformation, and it's crazy to see what happens when you decide that you're not going to stay in a negative energy anymore. That, you wake up some days and you're like on the wrong side of the bed and you're like, I didn't sleep very well, and it's Monday or Tuesday, and like, ugh, like I just hate everything about my life. You know those days. I had one of those days recently, last week, I think. And I was just like, I'm just over it. Everything. Like, I hate everyone. Everything is against me. Everything is terrible. And I recognized that I was in that energy, and I was like, oh, this doesn't feel good. I don't want to stay here. So, because, I had to do a live video on Instagram that I had planned and told everybody I was going to be there. So I'm like, I don't want to like project all that energy onto everybody else. So how do I change it? And I knew how to change it. I had some exercises, some really simple things that was just like, hey, recognize that you have a problem, and then let's figure out how to shift it. Let's shift it right now. And I didn't have to stay in that energy. I think I was there for like an hour, and then I was like, okay, let's do something else. Let's figure out how to be happy today, because that feels a whole lot better than feeling gross and disgusting and angry at the world. Okay, so speaking of happier, I wanted to remind you about your homework. We have a prize winner to announce. Every single day there's going to be homework in the Facebook group. If you do the homework, there are giveaways every single day. And, the whole point of these workshops is to get a transformation, is to help you actually make the change. And homework, as much as we hate homework, right? The homework will help you make that change. It will help you go even deeper than just listening to what I'm saying. It'll help reinforce it and help you think about some of the things and make some more progress. So our homework winner today, hopefully I'm pronouncing everything okay, MJ Mariner, you won a beautiful mug. It says "You Are Enough." It's from Ray Dunn, which I absolutely love. So I'm going to reach out to you and get your contact information so I can get it in the mail to you. And congratulations. I absolutely loved reading everybody's homework. There were quite a few people who did the homework. So it's great to see. I'm so excited that so many of you are active and participating and want that transformation, because it changes everything. Really, it does. Tomorrow I'm giving away a card deck from Gabby Bernstein. This is what it looks like. I have one. It's upside down. It's the Super Attractor card deck, which is really awesome. It has these like affirmations on it every single day. So if you're feeling really bad, you just draw a card, and it's one of the ways that you can change your energy, give you something positive to think about. So I'm giving a card deck away tomorrow, and one of you, there's actually two prizes tomorrow. Two people will be getting the card deck, and along with that, one of you will be getting a full scholarship to my program, which is called This Is Me. And then another one will be getting a partial scholarship. So make sure that you do your homework for tomorrow, because you're going to want these scholarships. They're worth quite a bit of money. And you'll be hearing more and more about my program towards the end of the week. And I usually save the scholarships towards the end, but I figured let's do more of it now because it's so much fun. I love giving things away. It's awesome. And to see the energy that we have in the group and to see how many people are participating is just so awesome. I appreciate you guys so much. And I can't wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a good day. So I hope that you enjoyed today. And we will see you guys again tomorrow. Same time, same place.
So you just watched that video, and I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you want some more amazing information about INFJs, check out these videos right now. I'll see you there. I hope you enjoyed that workshop as much as I did. Before we go, I want to let you know again that you can still join these workshops live. Go to infjwoman.com/hereforthis to get access to them right now. There will be a new podcast episode every day this week, so make sure that you check them all out. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again soon. So you just watched that video, and I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you want some more amazing information about INFJs, check out these videos right now. I'll see you there.